talking about mental health is critically important. I think we can reduce the seriously traumatic and like fatal mental health outcomes that some people experience, especially in this age group, which is highly susceptible, being like in college, having these identity crises, like relationship issues, injury in sport, eating disorder, like these things that are really prevalent in our age group right now. We can reduce the instances of where, that costs people lives. And that only happens if people talk. And that only happens if the stigma is reduced. So, like, it seriously all just comes back to, like, for me, creating programs, peer-to-peer groups, mental health education programs, creating spaces where people talk and feel comfortable talking about mental health. Because in doing so, we will reduce the stigma and reduce... Because, like, when it becomes too much, like, people, it's internalized. They haven't spoken about it. They're not seeking help. If people seek help, they generally improve. And they can generally push through it. But the ones that, we lose is because they don't get the help that they need. And so we've got to talk about mental health. We've got to remove the stigma. And that comes through education.
Specifically through education is a very interesting take because I believe the same. I think that most, if not all, of the world's issues can be solved through education, and a proper education, that is. And those are two issues we're lacking, right? Because one, the education system isn't including plenty of things that we're talking about, and two, even if it is included, it's not always the best. That's why I say proper education system.
Well, it's pretty interesting. Like, if we just look at athletics, student athletics, like college athletics, we have strength and conditioning coaches, we have nutritionists, we have mental performance coaches, like for improvement of performance. We have our position coaches. We've got we've got ASC, tutors and academic support. But we don't have anyone doing mental health support. Like, it's like the one branch that is just left untouched because it's like, campus will cover that. It's like, and mental performance cannot be talked about in the same equation as mental health support and mental illness. It's not the same thing. Improving someone's on-field success is not the same as improving their mental health. And so, we need to do a better job of providing education and providing people that provide education within the college athletic setting and just like student settings. Like, there's not, you can't just learn about mental health. And the good thing about the digital age is like podcasting. Like, and if you're willing and you're able to think critically, like, you can go and you can get some of this material. Some great people talk about really important things to do with mental health, but we need to do a better job of providing education in mental health. There's no class at school where you can go and learn about mental health. It's not in the curriculum. Not where it needs to be. Yeah.
You mentioned taboos, and not taboos, sorry, you mentioned the stigma. The stigma that still exists. Do you refer to the stigma that is mental health in general, or speaking up about it, or what do you think is left to break down? Because there seems to be a lot of progress and people think that the job is finished with these stigmas and the whole mental health topic no longer being a taboo. How would you respond to somebody saying that?
I'd say they don't really know what they're talking about if they think the stigma's been removed. I think until we have these education, like until the policies change, there's still going to be a stigma attached to it. Like, and this isn't to single anyone out, but like a lot of our older generation are still in positions of power right now, where when they were growing up, it was weak to talk about mental health, right? And I'm not blaming them at all. That's what they grew up with. That's what they learn. But it's a changing of the guard. Like, it's a new time right now. Like, mental health is so prevalent now. And like, I think there's still this thought from some of the older generation is like, oh, you talk about it too much, so now it's an issue because you talk about it too much, right? We never had this issue in our day. It's like, yeah, you did. The issues were just as prevalent back then, and they manifested themselves in many different ways back then. And there was critical loss of life back then because of those reasons, and people turned to other things like alcoholism, drug abuse. Like, this has been going on forever. This isn't a new issue. It's just people are willing to talk about it now, and we have better science to prove that what is detrimental to mental health these days. So the stigma still very much exists. Until we change policies, we improve curriculums, and we kind of get a changing of the guard to the new people that understand it, then, which is happening, no doubt. It is changing, but it's not there. It's not where it needs to be yet.
To close off this chapter of the conversation, if you could give any advice to anybody dealing with any struggles within their mental health, especially student athletes, what would you say?
Get help. Seek help. Don't wait. Like, it's totally okay to reach out, and whether that's just to your friend, to your partner, or to someone, a professional, like, just, it's okay to reach out to someone and say, you know what, I can't really fix this on my own. Get help. Seriously, that's just, it's the simplest way, and there's no shame, there's no weakness in that. In fact, like I said before, it's pure strength.
It's almost, I would just say it's incredible to see how people acknowledge that they're struggling, but still struggle to get help. And they will tell you, I am struggling, I do need help. But they will try not to get it.
And why is that?
I'm asking you.
Stigma. It's the only reason. Like, if they're admitting to needing help, then they know it's an issue, right? Why else would they not go and seek the help that they know that they need, apart from or fear of what people might think about it? Maybe there's a cost issue sometimes, which is why we need better education and better resources, because some people just flat out can't afford therapy, right? We're lucky, we can somewhat get that through the institution and, through being here, at an academic school, but like some people in the community just can't get therapy, which is why we need accessible therapy. And some platforms are really doing that now. There's some great platforms out there that offer like subscription service therapy, group therapies, other things. And so I think it's coming. We just need more accessibility.
It's crazy to even put those two together and just like see how that stigma is still very clearly there through that. Something I was thinking about when you were mentioning those that are in power and where they come from and how they aren't really to blame because they were just raised that way. A phrase that comes to mind is that everybody is a prisoner of their own circumstance. Mm-hmm. And even for me, it's surprising to a certain extent to hear what you just said because it's very clearly a stigma. But for me, it's a surprise because to me it isn't. Right? Yeah. I have no issue telling somebody like, yeah, I'm going to go see a psychologist because I need it. Yeah, I did it for a year and a half during my early college days. I did it in elementary school, and I'm completely fine with talking about that. To me, there is no stigma. Why? I can't tell you. Like, I just...
Well, you just told us why, because you've been exposed to it. Like, it's been a normal part of your interactions. Like, you've seen therapists before, right? Like, you probably had an environment where it was okay to talk about it, or you had someone that was like, let's help get you some help. Like, it was a bit more of a norm.
Maybe, you see, I've never really talked about this with my parents, but obviously they set me up with these psychologists, but it wasn't really talked about. Like, that's something personally that I don't understand about myself. I genuinely don't, because I know many of my friends wouldn't talk about this, and to me it's just, I don't know, it's part of it, but maybe it has to do with my parents providing these opportunities to me from a very relatively young age.
I think a lot of parents would try and deal with that on their own, not having the education themselves to notice that, oh, my son or daughter, they need help that I can't provide them. They try and do it themselves just because they don't know any better. And it's not blaming anyone, but you were fortunate that your parents saw that you needed some help. Same with mine. And they sent us to someone who could help, right? And so at a pretty young age, for me it was like 8, it was like, it's okay to go and talk to someone. In fact, you should do that. But a lot of our friends, a lot of people that we grow up with, a lot of people that we're friends with now, it was absolutely not normal. And they probably experienced the same thing we did in childhood, but they were not taken to a psychologist. And that no fault of their parents, but just were not given that comfortability that, like, it's okay to do that. And later in life, like, it comes back to really hurt them.
Yeah.